Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
We all know what happened at Jammu over the past couple of days, and we are all very concerned. We know that 2 drones sort of loitered on top of Jammu Air Base, very highly secured area and with a very highly secured airspace and perimeter around it. They got in, they dropped 2 explosives of about 5 kilos each and went back. And these explosives went off, one in the open and one on top of an installation, went through the roof. Mercifully, fortunately, nobody was killed. A couple of people had minor injuries, but it was an explosion that was heard far away in the city. Sizable explosion, high explosives, 5 kilos is a lot. You want to see how effective? One of these bombs fell on top of on the roof of one of the installations and has gone right through the concrete, burning it. So you can imagine, God forbid, if there was some valuable asset under it, maybe an aircraft, maybe fuel, maybe explosives, anything. So this could have caused a lot of damage. 2 other drones were seen near Kaluchak, which is the army cantonment. And once again, nobody knows what it was. When they were fired at, they returned. Now, what has happened right now? So far, when we've said terrorism, when we've said low intensity conflict, when we've said asymmetric warfare in this environment, in the environment particularly of insurgency, or in an environment when somebody does not want to escalate to a war or a quick retaliation, you have to get the human being out of the situation. That is the first thing. On your side, you don't care about human beings on the other side. So so far what we had seen being done was the human bomb attack. India saw its first human bomb attack with the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. After that, we saw that big one in J&K Assembly. I think it was in 2001 when somebody drove in with a car laden with explosives. Then we saw at Pulwama, the most infamously. So human bomb, and Americans have seen human bombs, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan. They have seen human bombs and human bombs and human bombs. What this attack shows you is that the bad guys now have taken the human out of the bomb. So when you have a human being with the bomb strapped on, I don't know if you saw the recent part 2 of The Family Man. It's a complex operation. A human being has to put all this stuff around him or her, and then that human being has to go through many levels of security, many levels of pat down. There can be an accident. Some terrorist or somebody truly committed may not mind blowing himself or herself up for a cause that you hold so dearly. But do you really want to be blown up before you reach the cause? And we have many cases of human bombs blowing up before reaching the target. In fact, when there was a flurry of these attacks in Pakistan, this was happening all the time. And also, a human bomb can lose nerve. The last moment can say, boss, मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, भागो यहाँ से, and switch off and get away. In this case, they've taken the human out. And while I'm saying all this, I'm actually discounting the fact that the bad guys care about the lives of their own people. So they may not mind losing the lives of their people, but ultimately they all do. Because the second thing that happens is that when there is a human being, even if little bits of the human being are found, that becomes a clue to where the person came from, what could the connections be. There'll be something somewhere, a key, as in the case of Pulwama, something. In this case, the human being is out. So in this new turn to terrorism or terrorist militancy, the human has been taken out of the human bomb. That is the headline of what has happened right now. Now, this is something that humankind has tried doing from times immemorial, but there was always a human involved. Although sometimes you sent a snake and a poisonous snake, put it in something. You see all those ancient stories, send somebody a gift, put a snake inside, very poisonous snake. You find a lot of those stories from the Greek, Roman, etc. history, some in Indian histories also. They were Vishkanyas who were sent to seduce somebody very important, a very important target, and kill him because of the poison they contained or they could transmit. Then came guerrilla warfare. So we saw guerrilla warfare, and they were always the assassins. What was the idea of assassins? That you go, you kill the one person who matters at a minimal damage. Even if you get caught, even if you get killed, you only lost one person, and then it's a cutout, the person gets killed, so no clue is left. All that has been evolving over time. Now with this, a human being does not have to go through security. An Air Force attacks you with an aircraft. You can see that aircraft wherever it's coming from. But it's because of the threat of aircraft and because of, again, of the threat of large armed drones that air forces have also become big. They have also enhanced their radar coverage. They've enhanced their short reaction, short range missile capacity in case any drones come flying low, but not for drones that are as so small that no radar, even visually from a distance, you can't distinguish between, say, a large kite, cheel, or a vulture, or a drone. And that drone could be carrying 5 kilos of ordnance. 5 kilos. Now I'll give you an example. Pathankot raid. Pathankot raid involved a bunch of human beings who had come to die, and they died for sure. So first of all, the Pakistanis suffered the loss of those lives. Unfortunately, we also suffered the loss of a few lives. But they had to cross the border, they had to find their way in, they had to negotiate, quote unquote, negotiate with that police officer who we've heard nothing of since then, a Punjab police officer. Then they had to climb the wall or get entry into the airbase, highly protected airbase, and even then, before they could do any damage to the base, they were challenged. And although some people, some soldiers had to sacrifice their lives, unfortunately, defending the base, the fact is their mission failed. Human beings fail, and when human beings fail, the stink is really bad, because the whole world knew the Pakistanis had sent it. The whole world knew it was a terror attack. Pakistanis had no place to hide, and also it broke the momentum of some kind of normalization between India and Pakistan, especially after Narendra Modi's stopover in Lahore to meet Nawaz Sharif. So what if you could do this all without having a human being crossing the border, without risking a human life, without having to climb a wall, without having to face commandos and fight with them, or any security guards and fight with them? That is what has happened right now with this drone business. Now, over time, this is an ongoing battle in warfare for human beings. Initially, they said that, oh, aircraft bombers should come so high that they are immune to anti-aircraft guns, when you had only anti-aircraft guns. So high-flying bombers became very important. Second, they said, no. Now anti-aircraft guns can reach higher, but also there are missiles. So important thing is, your attacking aircraft should not be caught by radars. So to avoid radars, you come really low, and to get really low, then terrain-hugging radars and terrain-hugging aviation aids were designed. When the Jaguar first came in the late 70s, it was described as a DPS, a Deep Penetration Strike aircraft. And if you read all the descriptions then, the descriptions used to be, this aircraft has a unique low ability. That means it can take off, stay low, go over enemy territory low, bomb the place it wants to at a very low level, so it misses all the radars. But now that doesn't work, because radars can pick up, radars can be higher up. There are AWACS, they can also pick up anything that's low flying. So from low, you went into the universe of standoff weapons. So now an aircraft goes like Balakot, you can be a certain number of miles away depending on the range of your missiles. Drop your munitions, guide it, sometimes they are self-guiding, and run for it. Similarly, the other side now also has air-to-air missiles, which are standoff range. So this is an ongoing battle. What happens is, while everybody in conventional warfare is going up the tech ladder, the bad guys are going below the tech ladder. They are picking up technology, they are using technology, but they are using technology really at a very low level. You'd remember that 618 CTC, we had talked about how Azerbaijan used drones and loitering munitions to crush Armenia in no time at very little loss to itself. They completely destroyed Armenia. That was the first time drones won a war. But those drones are military drones. They are very expensive, very complicated to control. Nobody can hide who owns those drones, where they are coming from. They also have a cost, but these are quadcopter kind of drones. So this is really the bad guys using technology of the FMCG level. FMCG, as many of you would know, is fast moving consumer goods. In fact, when I looked at pictures of these drones, I went to Google and I looked at the prices of drones which might be able to carry 5 kilos of payload, 5 kilos of weight. It may just be atta or sugar or something like that. 5 kilos of load. You can get those drones in a price range of 7,000 rupees. I think I saw 6,999, 7,000 rupees to 65,000 rupees. You think the ISI or any bad guys can't afford it? For the price of the one car that they blew up to destroy that bus in Pulwama, for the price of that one car, they would get God knows how many tens of these drones, dozens of these drones, and no human being will be involved and no evidence will be left, particularly because the drone is capable of coming back. So that is the big change that has now come about. Now, how do you find it? How do you fight it? So see a story by Snehesh Alex Philip, who's our defense editor, on the print.in. I'll share it with you. And he quotes this excellent expert who's a naval aviation expert and former test pilot. And I think the world of him. I follow him on Twitter. You also should. He's the real KPS. The real KAYPIUS. His real name though is KP Sanjeev Kumar, KPS. Check him out. Now he is quoted there as saying that, look, now you cannot spot them from a distance. You can't tell whether it's a bird. What is it? It's a bird, it's a drone, it's a plane. Maybe in the gale something is blowing up. You don't know. So you need electronic answers, and he says the response has to be jamming of radio frequencies, jamming of GPS settings of these drones that are coming in, or spoofing their navigation links, or really hard options like laser guided weapons. But once again, imagine if you are at an air base and if you start all this jamming activity 24/7 around you, how do you then make sure this doesn't affect your own communication and your own movements? The cost of this is very high, and the objective of terrorism is not to win a war, liberate a place. It is just to increase the costs for the adversary so high that the adversary thinks either that this is unaffordable, or the adversary goes on but is hurting far too much. So this is guerrilla warfare by another name, where the guerrilla is a very cheap machine that you can order on Amazon or India Mart or any of these websites. So since I talked about costs, what is it today that, say, Indian Air Force or Indian Army might use to counter these? Once they spot a drone, and they don't want to get so close that you are only left with your rifles and machine guns, because then you are never sure. So there is the Israeli Spider system with Derby missile. But a Derby missile is $2 million. $2 million. That's dollars. That's almost 15 crore rupees. So 15 crore rupees worth of missiles, and they are in limited supply. 15 crores worth of missile just to bring down one 10,000 rupee or 50,000 rupee or 60,000 rupee drone. Which reminds me of a line that Rudyard Kipling once wrote about the fighting in Afghanistan, and where he ruled the fact that British officers with 10,000 pounds worth of education were taken down by a 2 rupee matchlock by the Pathans. So this is a bit like that. You are now wasting so much money and so much resource against targets of no value. Even if you shoot down one of these drones, it's no real satisfaction. You feel stupid, and also you can make mistakes. As we know, it seems that it was a Spider Derby system that made a mistake with that helicopter after Pulwama on the day of the air battle. Because from a distance the system confused or those manning the system confused. Probably, I'm not making any judgment. Probably there was a confusion that Pakistanis had sent in a large drone, maybe with explosives, to burst on the airbase because they were trying to take revenge for Balakot. So this then becomes a very troublesome situation. The Navy has bought something, again it's Snehesh's story. Navy has bought something called Smash 2000 Plus. That requires eye contact and you can then fire. Again expensive and again 24/7, who's going to watch it? This one came at night. This is not blinking any lights, any navigation lights like an aircraft coming into land at night. So how do you see it early enough to be able to neutralize it? That is a problem. There are other things, the Mi-17, Mi-17V, these helicopters of the armed forces also have machine guns that can take down stray RPVs or drones. But once again, between finding one, getting something airborne, chasing after it, it is a waste of time and effort. See, go back to the warfare over Gaza. What did the Gazans do? They fired so many of these little rockets at the Israelis that Israelis kept on firing their Iron Dome system to prevent these from coming in. They stopped maybe more than 90% from coming down. But the cost of that, cost of one Iron Dome missile to stop one of these tiny rockets, tiny primitive rockets coming in, was perhaps several $1,000 more, or several thousand times more than that little thing. So in the end, it was hurting Israel. Can they continue it? Can they sustain it in terms of the number of missiles they were running short? And second, can they afford it financially? So that is the prospect that has now been opened out to us, opened out for us. We've seen this happen elsewhere, but that was more long range. We saw this happen, say, with Saudi Aramco's facilities in Adbak Khorez on 14 September 2019 in Saudi Arabia. We have seen this elsewhere also. In fact, I will also share with you two articles that Lieutenant General H.S. Panag wrote for us, and he was very prescient. On February 7, 2019, the first line in his article says, it's a matter of time before India faces terrorist attacks from these drones like these. You cannot be more prescient than that. And in that article he said that we've all missed out two incidents that have happened. And the first incident was 4th August 2018, when Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, he was targeted again by one of these tiny drones while he was inspecting a military parade. And the drone came and crashed and exploded, and there was panic and the soldiers ran helter-skelter. Fortunately, nothing major was done, but you can also imagine the damage this can cause by of a stampede, say in a pilgrimage, say at a Kumbh Mela, say at the Hajj, say in an election rally, anywhere, because whatever the explosive may kill, a lot more may then die in the stampede and in the confusion. So that is the ability or capability of this terrible thing. The second example he gives is 10th Jan 2019, when Houthi rebels in Yemen sent an armed drone, a drone loaded with explosives on top of a military base, and that killed 7 soldiers. Now think, there is no bigger fear than the fear of the unknown. You can guard your perimeter, you can guard your airspace, but how do you deal with an enemy like this? See, this is a completely new dimension to low-level warfare. Now, what are these called? In the military system, everything finds an abbreviation soon enough. So these are called COTS. So what are COTS? COTS are commercial off-the-shelf systems, what I called as FMCG drones. You can buy them off the shelf. And General Panag explained in that article the things that it can do. It can do intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. It can come over your facilities, it can watch your convoy and go back, send pictures. Even if you shoot it down, it has sent those pictures. Number 2, it can do transportation. So we are talking about drones transporting vaccines. A drone can transport weapons. Indian border forces have been seeing it for some time. From the Pakistani side, drones have been bringing weapons. It can bring information. It can bring anything. It can bring subversive material. It can be used to carry out assassinations. That is General Panag's list. It can damage or threaten commercial aircraft. Can you imagine a drone coming in the way just when a plane is taking off from a civilian airbase, which will never be protected like, say, an Air Force airbase? It can threaten crowd at rallies. religious festivals, sports stadiums, and cause stampedes. Why all of that? It can do something like that even at a big wedding. Because people are there, nobody is watching any security, and there may be drones in there anyway to make footage of the wedding celebrations. Again, reading from his list, you can use drones to transport chemical, biological, radiological leaks, because drone is carrying some awful thing that comes and hits something or falls someplace also, and then you have to deal with the after effects. It can be used to attack and dismantle or disrupt electricity grids. It can be used to attack fuel depots, because the idea is to get the maximum impact. Why did those terrorists come into Pathankot? Because if they had been able to damage even one fighter aircraft or one aircraft, one asset of the Air Force in that airbase, it would be a big story. Remember, some terrorists in Pakistan had done that to a naval airbase when they had blown up some aircraft. Maybe this was a payback for that didn't work. But now this can be done once again without involving a human on the ground. Now government is doing something about it, because you should not stop the drones, because drones are also greatly helpful. Just because vehicles can carry soldiers who can fire guns, you don't ban vehicles. So regulation has to come in. So the government has put in place one system in December 2018 that's called Remotely Piloted Aircraft System, RPAS, or a digital sky platform, and that follows the for unmanned traffic management, the system of no permission, no takeoff, which means for any drone to take off, you have to take permission. But you see what happens around Barats. Is anybody taking permission in real time? Then maybe they have taken permission earlier from the police or someplace that we'll be using a drone. But how do you know it's the same drone and not some other drone? So the time is now running out for security forces, for defense machinery, because they have to come alive to this threat now. They cannot wait. Because remember, 26/11, why did that happen? Because India was not conscious of the threat from the seas. So as that happened, we've secured the seas, we invested a lot more in Coast Guard, etc., etc., etc. We had never imagined before that these terrorists could come from the sea all the way from Karachi. But that happened. There is always a first time for the other side, for the bad guys. And that first time is usually unconventional or innovative, because governments are conventional. Also, governments can't be proactive in these cases, because you don't know who's hiding where. This could be one person in a city of 10 million who does something like this. So two more readings I'll share with you. One is a piece by KPS in the Quint, where he gives details of a lot of this, and from his piece I find a link to another article in Forbes magazine by Vikram Mittal. Now Vikram Mittal is an assistant professor at US Military Academy. He says in this article of his that these drones, these Chhota drones, FMCG drones, are the next IEDs for US forces, because US forces in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. suffered a lot of casualties just because an improvised explosive device sitting somewhere blew up, and Indian forces also suffered that damage. Now he says that these drones are the new ones, because earlier you could carry out a road opening, check out both sides, etc. You see those pictures coming out of the Naxal areas with those mine detectors, but you can do nothing because you don't know what will come from where. And in this article there is a fascinating example which I can't help quoting to you. That is the example from 1849. 1849, Austrian forces, when they assaulted Venice, they tried to take Venice. What did they do? They figured out the wind direction, and when the wind direction was right, they launched 200 balloons filled with explosives. Those balloons were then peacefully and quietly and beautifully and noiselessly blown into Venice, and then they all burst with their explosives and panic spread, and they won that war. So this idea has been there with humankind of using something remotely for a very long time. But the only difference now is today it's become so easy and technology is so simple and methods are all available on the internet that you no longer need a state to be able to do this, because you can deal with a state. How do you deal with every individual or every non-state group?